My social media feed lately, like the algorithm has been showing me nothing but celebrities Criterion closet videos. And honestly, as a fan of cinema, who wouldn't want to pick through the Criterion closet? Okay, well, maybe not everyone would want to. It's okay if you don't want to. But I'm just gonna play pretend for the next however many minutes this video is. I'm gonna divide this list into two parts. First being the horror movies that I love from Criterion that I already own, and then the ones that I love that I have on my list that I need to buy. So obviously I'll start with the ones I already have, and first one is Bound, which is not a horror movie, I know, but it's like it's a crime thriller, which I feel like is a cousin to the horror genre. This movie is the Wachowski sisters' debut, and goddamn, what a debut. It's like a dark, sexy, much more overtly sapphic Thelma and Louise, I feel like. I did not end up watching this movie until after I came out of the closet, finally. But let me tell you, had I seen this any earlier, game changer, absolute game changer. Next is an absolute classic, and that is Hexen, which is Benjamin Christensen's epic about the evolution of witchcraft, showing its pagan roots, the superstitions and practices that have stayed throughout time, and representations of ancient and medieval artworks on the subject. It's just a really creative and innovative film that I've seen like described or categorized as a documentary. And weirdly, I feel like you could look at a movie and be like, that is firmly like, that is a documentary. This one feels like almost too amorphous for that. It just feels like way more than a documentary. It's definitely worth at least one watch. It is a very singular movie. I can't think of another one like it. And then I have House from 1977. Talk about singular movies. Nobuhiko Obayashi's haunted house movie is way more than a haunted house movie. It follows a group of friends who travel to one of the characters' Gorgeous's aunt's remote mansion, where supernatural things begin happening pretty much as soon as they get there. Obayashi utilized animation in the movie to really tap into like a childlike imagination, and it works so well. The animations are really unique, they're thrilling. It truly feels like something you could dream up as a kid. This is one of those movies, and maybe it's a little mean of me, but I like to show people this movie, like people that have no idea what this movie is, and just like instead of watching the movie, I'm just watching their reaction to it the entire time. And finally, the only other horror movie or horror adjacent movie I own from Criterion so far is Carnival of Souls, which follows Mary, the sole survivor of a car accident who moves away to put the incident behind her. But visions of a fiendish man make her think she hasn't fully recovered. The story is simple but effective. If you haven't seen this movie before, I imagine pretty early on you might be able to guess what the big reveal is by the end. But the imagery along the way is what makes this movie worth it. It's so beautiful and creepy. There's just a lot of haunting shots in this movie that really stick with you, and they really elevate the simplicity of the plot. Even though this has clearly been honored with a Criterion edition, I still feel like this is an underrated classic. And now for the ones that I would like to make a part of my collection someday soon. I'll start with Vampire, which is directed by Carl Theodor Dreyer. The movie follows Alan Gray, who learns about the curse of vampirism and watches the curse of the vampire destroy a town. This is another one, like Carnival of Souls, that has some really striking imagery and scenes. One of the most chilling sequences in the movie is when Gray has an out-of-body experience and sees himself dead. The POV shots of him like lying in the coffin and being carried to his burial are so unsettling. I think about that a lot, and I feel like I've dreamed that sequence a lot, like me being in the point of view, and it's really terrifying actually. Next is one that initially, like when I was just jotting down the list of like, this is what I immediately want from the Criterion collection. Like if you gave me a couple $100, like this is what I'd get right now. And I'd put each of these on here individually. And then I remembered that there is a trilogy collection, which is the Trilogia de Guillermo del Toro. The Guillermo del Toro trilogy, which includes his take on the vampire, one of the most unique ones I've ever seen in Cronos. There's also film fan favorites Pan's Labyrinth, which tells a horrifying tale of childhood trauma, which draws a young girl into a world of mythical beings. And then of course, my personal favorite Guillermo del Toro movie, The Devil's Backbone, a gothic haunting set during the Spanish Civil War. I love the fantastical elements that Del Toro brings to his movies, even the slightly less fantastical ones like The Devil's Backbone, at least compared to something like Pan's Labyrinth. It's less fantastical. There's something about like childhood imaginations and how we handle traumatic events as children that Del Toro really can tap into in his movies, especially these three. And all three are as heartbreaking as they are scary. I just talked about Alejandra Amenabar's The Others in my video about horror movies that I think you should watch without knowing anything beforehand. I'll link it up here. So I won't go into details on this one just in case you still haven't seen it yet. But this is a really unsettling haunted house story with a twist that may or may not be predictable, but I was so worried about what was lurking in the shadows of this gothic manor in the movie that I forgot like anything about trying to figure out what was actually going on. And this one has a bit of a sad ending as well, but I really love that about like gothic ghost tales. And finally, I would pick Cat People, directed by Jacques Turner. We're following Irina, who begins a romance with an engineer, Oliver. But Irina is plagued with concerns that she is cursed and will transform into a vicious cat if she gives into physical passions. This movie is, among all the themes, really about this poor woman who has to contend with all of these men telling her what they think is right for her, as much as it is about sexual repression, which is like the main theme people pick at for this movie. I would even argue above sexual repression, I think this movie more is about Irina telling Oliver and that doctor guy and all the other men in this movie what she wants out of her romantic relationships, like her boundaries, and them all refusing to listen to her because she comes from another culture than them. And I think that's the real horror of this movie. Anyways, I clearly have lots to say about Cat People and I really need it in my Criterion collection. Okay, so those are just the immediate ones, like I said, that I really want in my Criterion collection right now. Far from everything on my list, but I want to hear from you. What would you take from the Criterion closet if you could be in there right now? And if we're talking about movies I would love to see get an immediate Criterion treatment, you can check out my reviews of Cuckoo and The Substance. I'll link them here. I will see you next week with more videos. Until then, stay strange. Bye.